Hey yogis, welcome to a very special episode of How Yoga Changed My Life. In this episode, we are exploring how yoga changed friendships. We heard from a number of yogis and friends, so thank you for sharing your stories with us. And I think I'll just open it up by sharing how yoga changed friendship for me personally. When I was in my yoga teacher training, we had a weekend that was guided and centered around the goddess Kali. Kali is a goddess with this mothering force, a mothering sense, where she makes you face the parts of yourself that you need to face and makes you address it, right? She guides you. And it was really interesting because I went through 2 of those 3 days of the weekend not really feeling her presence. The people around me were really impacted and sharing these kind of revelations, and I was just feeling like I was skating by. I was very impressed, especially when I just think about the idea of a mothering presence. I thought it would have been really pertinent, and it just didn't stand out for me quite yet. And so then at the second evening, right, I went out with a friend and went to an art show of another friend, and he and I got in a huge fight. I had tried to kind of correct him on his behavior while we were out and about because I was worried that he was like too drunk ultimately. And it resulted in a huge fight where he felt like I was being demeaning and I was acting as if I was better than him, and it was a really, really upsetting moment for me. He's one of my best friends, and I had this moment where I felt kind of like if even my best friends don't know my intentions, then who does know me, right? I've always been someone who's a little bit rough around the edges, and I think can be misunderstood perhaps by those who don't know me, but thought that some of my closest friendships might understand that about me. But then I realized through our conversation and us being able to like reconcile in the moment, because thankfully neither of us just got in this argument and walked away. We got in this argument and really like dug into a conversation. And I realized that even my best friends who know me very, very well still deserve some level of softness from me, still deserve some level of understanding. And when I think about that conversation we've had, I'm just super grateful, and it just made me reapproach how I approach friends, even those who know me super well, right? So approaching friendships with grace, approaching friendships with understanding, and ultimately like pausing before making assumptions. I think another thing is and I've been leaning on this a lot as I approach friendships from almost that moment moving forward, is when you worry about someone, it's because you don't trust them. And so when I've worried about any of my friendships, I start to ask myself, do I trust this person to get themselves out of this scenario? Do I trust this person to navigate their own life? And at the end of the day, as it relates to that friend in specifically, I do. I trust him wholeheartedly. I trust all of my best friends wholeheartedly, and I know that they can get through really any aspect of life that is put before them. So yoga changed how I trust my friends, and also how I approach them, and how I know that they deserve a level of tenderness and care even when they're my closest friends, and those are people I feel I can joke with or maybe be rough around the edges with. Those friendships still deserve, friendship, right? They still deserve those like kid gloves that sometimes you might approach newer friends with. So that's my story. I hope you gleaned something from it, and if not, we have a few amazing stories for you to tune in. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Meg Sween. Yoga changed the depth within my friendships. I've created some of the most beautiful, deeply compassionate friendships and relationships with people within the yoga community in a way that I don't think I've necessarily experienced outside of the yoga community. Just like our practice encourages us to explore the relationship within and to live authentically and as close to the heart as possible, I think these friendships have encouraged me to do the same. To live as authentically as possible and really stand true in who I am. So I think that just as my yoga practice has really enriched my life for the better, I think that these friendships too have enriched my life in a way that just doesn't compare. And I really think I have yoga to thank for that.
How yoga changed my friendship. So I guess my actual core group of friends for like over 10 years were my ex-boyfriend's friends. And we, at some point I had to let go of all of those because it just kept hurting me over and over again. And I moved into and rested on my yoga friends. And when I got into yoga because work was crazy, and that's how I met my best friend. My best friend was my yoga teacher, and we were both going through some crazy shit at the time that I started yoga, and we grew together as friends through all of the bullshit. And so we learned how to lean on each other and how to lean on yoga through all of that. And then just as I've grown as a person, my friendships within yoga have also grown. And I've seen that as I get interested in certain things like Reiki or crystals or whatever, I have like-minded friends around me that are all into the same things. And so it's really cool to have friends with the same values and openness that you have towards new things, because I'm always learning with my yoga friends. And if I need help with something, somebody always knows something or someone to go to. And my yoga mentors have turned into some of my best friends. And so I feel like my life is so much more fulfilled now with the friendships that I've created through yoga. They're not solely my own friendships, but they are the ones that that bring me the most joy and reciprocity, and they make me the happiest, are my yoga friendships.
Yoga changed my friendships by making them stronger. I originally learned about yoga from a friend of mine who went through teacher training, and I became her +1 at the studio and took her classes all the time, and that encouraged me to start teacher training on my own. Once I became a yoga teacher, I got some of my friends interested in yoga, and they started taking my classes, and now they have memberships, and we take classes together all the time. So I'm so grateful for yoga bringing more friendships into my life through the studio and enhancing my current friendships by incorporating yoga into them.
My yoga journey began in May of 2020. I'm a teacher. I had been out of school for 2 months at this point. Summer in any other normal school year would have just been ready to kick off, but we'd already been home for 2 months, and I just needed something to do. So I eventually came across this online platform for yoga that had pre-recorded classes, and I started taking those, and I loved it. And then I got brave, and I was like, I'm going to go to live class on Zoom and see how that goes. And I loved it even more. And in these live classes, I started to meet amazing people that were located all over the country and that my path would have never crossed with theirs any other way. And we're in the middle of the pandemic, so nobody's really going anywhere or doing anything. So it was great to find a new group of friends that I would see in class. And after the summer, I started realizing maybe I want to be a yoga teacher. I already teach 8th grade math. I like these people. They're offering teacher training. I'm going to do teacher training for yoga. And I did. And through that process, I met even more new people who, like me, wanted to be a yoga teacher or just wanted to deepen their practice. And through a 200-hour training, and it's all on Zoom, you really get to know people. And we would find out things about each other because we would have time to talk and chat. And through social media, we started following each other, and I began to just develop these relationships with amazing, wonderful people that I would never meet otherwise. And these are my yoga friends. I message with them most days, or we text, or we talk. And through the live classes, I've formed really real friendships because there was time to talk after. And I now have friends all over the world through yoga that I got to meet. And one of my friends I met through live classes, we talk every single day, several times a day. She's just become that person that I check in with to troubleshoot whatever's going on in life or to celebrate whatever's happening. And we've never met in person, but I know she's there and she's a great friend. It's really life-changing that all of this happened through yoga. And I now feel very connected to many people at this point around the world, from California to England to Virginia, Texas, Massachusetts, Chicago. I used a time in life where everybody felt isolated to build a community for myself of people that I like and that I can't wait to meet one day. Although our paths have not crossed in real life, I still feel that these are my friends. And we check in and talk all the time. This was definitely a gift that I've received from yoga that I was not expecting, which is a community of amazing people.
Yoga practice definitely has a great impact on my friendships and relationships in general. I remember growing up, I was definitely a very introvert person, and it's just very hard for me to say hi to strangers, connect with strangers and new people. And I always, I remember before I started practicing yoga in a studio, I used to just go to the gym by myself, and I was just every day, I spent basically every day by myself, being an introvert. But ever since I started practicing yoga in a studio, I started opening up to new people. And I remember every single class at the beginning, the teacher always encouraged us to introduce ourselves to someone new or give them a hug. I think at the beginning was really hard, but slowly I just started to enjoy this process and really started to really looking forward to meeting new people and also connect to the people I know, because in the past it would be really hard for me to stare into someone's eyes for a long time. But ever since I practiced yoga, and also during the yoga teacher training, the teacher asked us to look into someone's eyes for 20 minutes. So I feel there is definitely connections when we have direct eye contact instead of avoiding looking at each other. And I think slowly I become more opening up to people, new experience. And also I am willing to connect with the people that I know to have a deeper connections. And another thing that I think yoga has a great impact in my friendships and relationships is that I started to learn setting boundaries. Because in the past, I would not be able to say no to people's requests. And now I know, like, I've learned that, like, to hold space for other people, hold space for new relationships, new friendships, but also hold space for myself to really know what truly matters to me, and also like set boundaries and to really establish like a good relationship and friendship and taking care of myself. So I think yoga has taught me a lot of things, but the biggest thing is it definitely changed my personality in a way to, like, I'm still somewhat of an introvert, but I just love community. I love meeting new people and connect with people. And also another thing in terms of relationship with myself, I learned to set boundaries. I think it's a really important thing that I didn't know for like the past past 2 decades before I was introduced to yoga. So definitely I've owned a lot of great things to yoga.
Here's my hashtag yoga changed friendship for me story. Back then, when I first moved to Atlanta, my neighbor, who became my best friend, Deanna, gave me the best advice when you're struggling to find yourself time for what you love. At the time, my oldest daughter, Campbell, was almost 2. We had just moved from Colorado, and I left my job at Coors Brewing Company to stay at home. I wasn't used to being alone, and I kind of felt like I was anchoring myself to the house. Deanna belonged to a fitness center that had free childcare for 2 hours every day, and she invited me to go along. For context, I was a new mom in a new city and wasn't sure about how this whole childcare thing was going to work. I dropped Campbell off, grabbed my mat, and for the first time in years, I was back in a yoga studio again. I felt at home outside of my home. My daughter was playing happily with her friends, and I was with mine. Yet, as a new mom in a new town, I still had a hard time finding the motivation inside to actually go to class consistently. Deanna has 3 kids that were older than mine, and she knew exactly how I felt. She told me to keep a yoga mat and a change of clothes in my car at all times. That way, there's no excuse to stop, drop, and yoga. Because of Deanna, you'll always find a mat and a change of clothes in the back of my car. And now, I love the buzz of a yoga studio lobby. Between classes, people mingle and chat about how the class felt or how the intention the teacher brought in was exactly what they needed to hear. You'll hear them compare notes on how their bodies felt in the poses, and they'll even open up about their injuries or their self-inflicted limitations they're trying to release. As a yoga teacher now, watching and listening to the bustling yogis walk in, greet their teacher, kick off their shoes, and unroll their mats, they begin to settle into their safe place to move and breathe. They pass by their sweaty friends as they're finishing rolling up their mats and blissfully floating out the door. Sometimes they'll forget their keys, their phone, or their water bottle, or even their shoes, because they're so blissed out from class. We call that yoga brain in the business. And like most people, yogis enjoy their routines. They often go to the same classes at the same time each week. They will unroll their mats in the same place in the studio every time. And you'll even hear some quiet whispers as they greet their neighboring yogis. And then over time, I watch their friendships begin to take shape. Some will meet up for coffee after class, or even drinks, depending on the time of the day. Or they'll sign up for a workshop or a special class together. I've watched love interest grow into lifelong relationships. I've even seen yogis fly from all over the country to meet up someplace special for a yoga retreat. But my absolute favorite time with my friends in the yoga studio is when there's free time in between classes. Students will stay and bond over their love of an inversion or an arm balance. They'll practice and share tips and tricks and even different transitions. And some of my best memories are with my omis, practicing on our mats in between the classes. Yoga friendships will develop after class, sometimes chatting in the lobby or in the locker room. Sometimes they'll share a common struggle on their mats and learn from each other how to cope. I have had the absolute pleasure of building and watching so many amazing relationships blossom and grow between students on their mats. Along my yoga path, I've led teacher trainings all over the U.S., both before, during, and after COVID. My trainees become members of my extended family, whether they like it or not. And I love looking on a map now and knowing that I have incredible bonds with people I've trained all over the U.S. It's shown me that no matter the distance between our yoga mats, the bond we curate is lifelong. Yoga has completely changed the way I connect with people. Mostly because when I'm in the studio, I'm my most open self. The studios I've practiced in or taught at feel like an extension of my home. I'm able to be vulnerable on my mat because yoga is not a competition. There's no winner or loser at the end of class. There are no trophies or prizes either. Well, not literally, but you could say that Shavasana is the ultimate grand prize. Yoga also levels the playing field in a way. Whether you're an elite athlete or a prize-winning couch potato, each one of us faces only ourselves on our mats. In that space, our walls are down, and our ability to see that we are all on the same struggle bus allows us to drop our judgments, our doubts, our limits, and begin to embrace compassion for not only ourselves, but for everyone around us. The friendships that I've made over my yoga journey are some of the most meaningful relationships I've ever cultivated. So it makes sense. The word yoga is derived from Sanskrit and means to join. It was so much fun for Mia and I to hear your stories about friendship. So we're offering up a new topic: how yoga changed my perspective. Explore anything that you'd like, but we want to hear from you. So you can send us an email, yogachanged@gmail.com. If you have an iPhone, you can open voice memos, record yourself, and then send it to us in an email. If you'd like to be on the show, you can also email us. Follow us on the TikTok and Instagram @yogachanged. Send us a message. We are so thrilled and thankful for all of your support. It's been such a pleasure to get to share yoga with all of you. Hope you have a great week. Can't wait to hear from you. See you next week.